Our last session is a panel. Before I introduce our two panelists, we're going to actually make this a little game. So is anybody here familiar with ESPN's former TV show, Around the Horn? Oh, we got a couple. All right. Around the Horn used to be a funny show that they just canceled this year, so losing context. But what they do is basically talk about a topic in a category, allow all the panelists that participate in the show to talk about said topic, and then the moderator or the show host delegates points at the end of every round. What they do is add those up, and at the end, they have a winner who gets to stand on the soapbox while the rest of the panelists are canceled and just give their own spotlight. We're going to mix that up a little bit in the sense that we're going to have 3 topics of conversation with our panel today. I have a whole bunch of questions that I have teed up for them that largely have come from folks here based on responses to RSVPs. But a big portion of this is we want to make this interactive. So at any point in time, if you have a point of view, if you have a follow-on question, or you just want to kind of dig into a specific category or topic, just raise your hand. I'll come out and you can talk into my shirt. And then at the end of each round too, I'm going to give out 15 points at my own liberty. And I'm going to ask the audience to do a hand raise poll to see which of the panelists they thought were better on the topic. So you all will award 5 points to one of our 2 panelists at the end of every round. Does that sound like fun? Yeah. Sweet. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to welcome Anushka up. Anushka is joining us as a fractional controller who was formerly in her last stint. Formerly a controller at Warby Parker and has been in accounting for your entire career. You take your pick. Yeah. First panelist gets to take their...
in the middle.
Right in the middle. Has been in accounting for your entire career and now independent, working with a variety of clients on a regular basis. So really excited. Our second panelist, Mr. Joe. Come on up here. Joe is joining us from Witham. If you haven't noticed, we have a bunch of Witham folks in the room. Let's give a shout out to the Witham team. Joe does a ton with data and AI. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, and I was like, how did you find yourself at the intersection of the most blowing up category on the planet right now? He was like, I just kind of always liked data and automation, and then AI all of a sudden supercharged the things you can do with both. So Joe has a very unique perspective and a lot of interactions with a large variety of clients and accounts, and that kind of breaches the spectrum of business. Finance and accounting for sure, but touches a lot of things. So between the 2 of them, I feel like we have unbelievable experts that we can dive into a whole bunch of categories. And like I said, we're gonna have 3 specific rounds. So I'll sit down so I'm not the only one standing. Pull up my phone so I don't forget what we're talking about. And our first topic is gonna be the future of finance and automation. First question, I'll let Joe start us off. Joe, what areas of finance are most ripe for automation?
So when you're considering different areas to automate, not just really within finance, but really just across the board, what you're looking for are kind of several different factors. One are highly repetitive processes that you guys are doing maybe once a week or even more frequently than that also take up a ton of time. Another good opportunity is for any rule-based processes. AI is very good at following rules, of course after you do thorough testing and whatnot. But any rule-based processes that really don't change and remain fairly static are excellent candidates for automation as well. And then finally, like I said, anything that's manually intensive is just an excellent opportunity, or data intensive as well. You want to try to really limit the opportunity for manual errors to occur with high data intensive tasks.
Can you give me an example of a highly redundant task where you've seen success in automation?
Yeah, I would say one example that I've seen used is with invoice processing. So when invoices are submitted, whether that be a digital document or even a hard copy paper document, AI tools can do this thing called OCR, and for those who don't know, it's called optical character recognition. And basically what you do is you just feed that document into the AI tool. It can easily recognize different pieces of key metadata and extract that metadata, send it off to, say, an approval process, where even that can be automated as well. So instead of having a reviewer go into all of these different invoices that have come in for the day, you can have AI automatically flag any problematic documents that have come in, so that it just makes the review process a little bit more efficient.
I love that one. Has anybody in the room attempted or tried to automate invoicing with AI or automation? Yeah, we have one. All right. Oh, we got it. Awesome. Look at this. So you're onto something there, Joe. I like it. Anushka, same question to you. What areas of finance are most ripe for automation?
I'm just going to piggyback off of this response. I mean, we know, at least from an accounting perspective, you do the same thing truly repetitively every month. So if you want to think about areas on your accounting team where they're quite literally pulling the same Excel spreadsheet and reviewing it, that would be a great place for automation. And an example I have is accruals and flux analysis. So if you're having someone like a staff accountant on your team is reviewing month over month the same GL code and trying to remember if they accrued for utilities that month, maybe a good place to put in some automation is for them to tell you that the vendor is missing in that period. And similarly, after you've closed, you're going to be doing a similar analysis, right? Like, why is it that revenue is lower this month, or why is it that expenses look a little bit off? Fluxes are a place where a lot of things are caught in the end, but also because it happens in the end, a lot of people don't do them. So if you implement some form of automation, it can also review and say, hey, by the way, this vendor is missing. Was that on purpose? Did you stop using advertising this month? Because last month you did. And so it's a good place to catch yourself as a preventative step and a detective step.
I love that answer. Is that something you're actively doing with some clients today?
Yeah, that's something we're trying to do. We're also trying to do sort of reading invoices as well, because if you scale to a point where you're public, the less someone is touching anything, right? The less likely there will be an error. Yeah. So you won't fat finger the vendor ID, you won't fat finger the amount. So all you have to do is highlight some of these key attributes on a PDF, submit it in for review, and then you're in a much faster and better place. So this is no different. So we're experimenting across the board.
So awesome. To the audience, is anybody doing anything else similar and trying to automate categories of finance? Oh, Ahmed, in the back. Oh yeah, I don't want just a hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think for like automating like categorizations, you can build things out like rules and stuff like that. But for like things like flux analysis and variance reports, there's some software we utilize as well, where vendor will say, hey, you're missing. Usually you see this vendor for utilities or for software looks like they're missing, or like it's down 50%. Maybe you remove the C for your software, and it's explained maybe they build you on the first instead of the 31st, and the next one they go for it. So yeah, we definitely implement that when we're doing our monthly reviews.
That's awesome.
Keeper. Yeah, it's like a workflow management, but then we also implement the system too.
Very nice. The three of your responses remind me of something. I remember Lindsay telling me when I was interviewing with Blue Onion, I was like, I didn't know accountants all that well. I didn't know finance all that well. And I was scared of it too, to be honest. And I asked what are accountants like? And part of that anecdote was like, not like you, they're not social, they're not gonna go shake everyone's hand. But then she was also like, they're unbelievably entrepreneurial. And what I just heard was 3 examples of extreme entrepreneurialism. And I think that's just so cool. Like the opportunity is abundant, and every one of you just gave an example that is legitimately like something you can do today. So really cool. I dig it a lot. I'm gonna go on to the next question. Anushka, you're staying with it. You're up next. The next question is gonna be, how should a finance leader prioritize investments in automation and or AI?
Yeah, I mean, this one I sort of laughed at when you sent me, because sometimes I feel like finance leaders will buy a piece of tech and then won't ensure that adoption is at its peak. Yeah. So I would say your first step as a finance leader is to ensure if you purchase something to prepare your team or to make them better, faster, stronger, ensure that they know how to use it. Adopt all the pieces of it, because there are so many cool pieces of technology out there that probably do address the need, but you don't realize that you're not using it the right way. I've seen people still manually do prepaid expenses, depreciation, amortization. That's something you can very easily automate, and it's probably in your ERP right now, and they're not using it. And then the second part of the question was adoption of AI or?
Prioritization.
Okay.
Yeah, how would you think? So I think you're right about that for sure. First and foremost, if you're gonna invest, ensure that you get the return, yes. Right? That's top of the list. But across the places that you can invest in automation and or AI, how do you focus if you're a leader? Where do you direct the team to try and actually define those foundational use cases?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to get data as quickly as possible. So I think any place that can support shortening your close will be beneficial. And so I would say the key highlighted areas are always going to be revenue and cash.
Yeah.
So a great place to focus, because if you can get that data out to your stakeholders every day, immediately to make decisions, you're a hero. And then you can focus on your other close items after the fact. And I know a lot of people believe that their processes are very niche and they're very special and they're a unicorn. And if that is the case, I would encourage your teams to learn some low code, no code, so that their Excel spreadsheets become more abundant and more dangerous, and or use something like Blue Onion. But if that's not on the radar right now, then at least try and really make your spreadsheets as robust as possible.
Such a good question. There is a board outside that someone put Excel up as one of their secret loves that a lot of people in finance may not be crazy about. So that's really good. Joe, same question to you. And you're definitely spanning a lot of clients in this category. So curious your take and what you're seeing people doing as far as prioritization.
So I think, I'll kind of tackle this question in two different parts. So the first is going to be when it comes to prioritization and what you should be automating. The first step you should really take is kind of evaluate all the different kind of projects that you have currently going on and see if any of them are a good opportunity to begin implementing AI. Maybe you don't need a specific AI implementation project, but maybe you already have a project in the works that could be an excellent candidate for having some AI implementation. Another way you can kind of surface these priorities is by asking your team members. What are your team members doing? They're going to create your use cases essentially for you. Here's a process that I do weekly. Here's how much time it takes me. If we can automate this process, here's how much time can be saved. And I think that is not only excellent for prioritization, but also getting that kind of leadership buy-in as well.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to evaluation, when you have these kind of KPIs surfaced after you've talked through your use cases and you finally decided to kind of tackle an AI implementation, you want to follow them very closely. You want to engage stakeholders early and often. And you kind of want to build a culture of safe exploration. You want to allow experimentation with these tools. You want to allow your team members to fail. You don't want to punish these failures, but instead you want to take lessons learned from these failures, which is only going to feed and make the next iteration succeed. And if it was successful, that's kind of when you land and expand, right? You want to start with these kind of quick wins that are low impact, high ROI. You can see the benefit, and then from there you can just keep growing and growing and growing, because these AI implementation projects, they are highly iterative. You're going to constantly be building on top of it, whether that be having a AI tool that does a plethora of different things, or maybe a fleet of different AI agents that all have a specified task.
Such a good answer. I was talking about that earlier, the way that Lindsay manages with AI. It's, hey, we're not going to do everything top down. We want the group and the team to explore the things that they find interesting, share the places where they're succeeding, and see if there's a possibility to scale. And I think, even personally, I have a lot of, I wouldn't describe it as necessarily anxiety, but a little bit of just the fear of am I doing enough? Have I tried enough things? What more can I do? If I haven't done enough or it hasn't worked out well enough, how do I keep going after failing numerous times at certain potential use cases? And I think regardless of what category of the business you're in, we all kind of feel a little bit of that, that tension. Am I behind? Is somebody doing something that I don't know about yet that is an opportunity that I should know about? How do you think you interact, or what do either one of you recommend to people that potentially are feeling a little bit of that stress?
If they're behind or not, and
are you behind? Is there something, if it's, a lot of us use it for writing, respond to an email. There's some of the low-hanging fruit that I think is obvious, but, I ask myself recurrently, what else? What else can I do? What else is there for us to explore?
I think that events like this are excellent opportunities, because really with how fast AI is moving, knowledge sharing is critical.
Yeah.
With how fast everything is moving, all the different capabilities that are coming out across all of the different tools, each has a different kind of specialization. You want to see how people are using these tools in their own ways. You can kind of, if you're using a different tool, for example, see if you can kind of fit it to that use case. If not, maybe that's an opportunity to kind of expand into another tool sort of thing. So I would say knowledge sharing is incredibly valuable in this, because we're all kind of in the same boat, just trying to keep up. And then, it's important not to be too hard on yourself. This is something that I was really struggling with kind of when I began dipping my toes and getting involved in AI. But, just kind of keep up with what's going on in the news, read LinkedIn posts. A lot of my AI colleagues just kind of recommend reading the news as it comes in, try not to get too consumed by it and spend your entire day reading about all the latest advancements, because at the rate it's changing, it might not even be valuable tomorrow.
Totally.
So we'll just kind of, try to keep calm,
Yeah.
digest it as it comes in, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I like that, to give yourself some grace, because I think something I've noticed in my career is that there's always new tech, and accounting is still accounting, and finance is still finance, and it's not necessarily taking your job tomorrow. So allow yourself that space to learn, but give yourself some grace that it's not something that you need to know now, day after, even a year from now, but potentially could be your best friend 5 years from now.
So good. I love the idea of giving yourself grace, and giving your colleagues and your business grace. There's a lesson that maybe you can translate from a very common thing in sales. You're actually chasing no's. You want to get as many no's as possible, because the more no's you get, the faster you get to the next yes. We were just talking about this a little bit. And it's a weird thing to think about, but you actually want to celebrate those failures. And it's similar with AI in the sense that the more we try, the faster we're going to find the thing that does work and does stick. And it's okay to fail. We're all going to fail with so many different attempts at automation and AI, but the more failures we have, the faster we get to success, right? So I think that's an amazing anecdote. Give yourselves, your colleagues, and your businesses some grace. All right, last question on this topic before, you guys are making this really hard to do. I'm gonna have a difficult time giving points. Last question before we do so. What does an everyday finance team look like in the next 3 to 5 years? I think one thing that is constant in the conversations we have, both with clients and prospects, is there is a little bit of concern and or fear. Are there things that I need to learn if and when my job replaces me? What does the team look like? What is the makeup of the people, the tools? What is being done through automation and AI? What's still being done by a human?
Yeah. I definitely think you're still going to have the team framework that you likely have today. But the hope is that everyone is elevated a little bit higher into more analytical and strategic roles, because that menial tasks doing is now sent to the machines. And so then you and your value and your team's value is now about supporting the company on a roadmap that looks different than hey, I have 2 spreadsheets and I'm comparing because I'm trying to reconcile. So it's a bright future, I think. I don't think we should see it as it's taking jobs, that always comes up.
Yeah.
Can't wait for it to take, some ticking and tying jobs. None of us really want to do that. But we would love to be in the room to say hey, before we close, I want to let you know that we missed revenue, or margins off. And it's hard for us to do that today. I have full faith that in 5 years, it will be much easier and much quicker, faster with the same makeup of the team you have now.
That's awesome. Joe?
Yeah, just to echo what was kind of just being said, I completely agree. I view AI, at least right now, as a workforce accelerator, not a workforce replacement. So the way that I kind of view these teams in the future is that everyone's going to have essentially their own little AI assistant, where a lot of the kind of menial or repetitive, time-consuming tasks are kind of pushed off to essentially having your own little intern. You're going to give them the tasks that you would normally give an intern. You have to explain it just as in depth as you would someone who's never been around this stuff before, and then they get the job done. Then after that, they know how to do it moving forward. They can do it pretty well, pretty reliably moving forward. And I think that then you are freed up to deal with more complex tasks. I think roles are going to change slightly as well, so you are no longer responsible for doing those manual tasks, but rather interpreting their outputs in order to make better strategic decisions and taking on a lot of the more complex kind of human problems that AI isn't really quite ready to handle yet.
Great answers. I think I hear something echoed often from finance leaders, both at the clients and prospective level, and one of them is, we expect to scale the business, but we expect to not scale the headcount. Right? And I think the concept you're both hitting on is, if we can supercharge the human being, we can scale the business without scaling the headcount. And I always think of it, do we have any Marvel Universe fans in here? I'm the only nerd? Oh, all right, we got. I always think of it as Iron Man's Jarvis. I'm waiting for that day where I'm just telling the thing to do all this stuff, and it's happening in front of me, and I'm manipulating it in front of me in the air. And I hope that's a future that we can actually ascertain, but who knows? But the concept here being AI enhances the ability of the human, not replaces it. Unbelievably well said, and I agree in all of that. The hard part now, as the moderator and the game show host, giving out points on this topic, let's start with the audience. Make it easier for me. Can I get a show of hands? Who thinks Joe had the better answers on topic number 1?
The competition.
Oh, I'm seeing a lot of with them hands in the air. There's some bias here. Okay. How about Anushka? Yep. All right, 5 points. Okay, for me, I get 15 points to give out. On the first question, I am going to give Joe 3 points. I thought you were really articulate and spot on. On the second question, I'm going to give Grace the answer, because I think one of the hardest things in modern day is actually doing that, giving yourself, your friends, your family, your colleagues grace. And it's something that we all need and really important. So 4 points on that one. And that means I can count. 8 points left. 7. No, I gave away 7. So yeah. See, I'm not an accountant. Struggle with arithmetic. 8 points left. I am going to go just based on the last answer of really enhancing the human, not replacing the human. Each of you 4 points, which I believe we have. I don't know. Meg's in charge of counting. we got 7 apiece. 4 and so I got 1 left to me because I'm doing a great job moderating. Okay. Before we move on to the next topic, just a quick poll of the audience. Is there any thoughts, takes, point of views, asks, questions based on the future of automation and AI? No? Oh, Lindsay?
Yeah. How do you guys think about developing junior talent, right? So one of the examples was, hey, this is something an intern used to do, and now this is something that can be automated. And a lot of that hands-on training, right, came from doing those more junior level tasks. So yeah, how do you guys think about that piece of it?
Well, I think, at least for me, so like, when I began at Witham, I actually began as an intern. And a lot of the work that I was doing, is still work that, we still handle manually to this day. Some of it, we get some AI involvement now, but I think where it really is going to change for interns is they're going to kind of become more familiar with the tools that are doing the work rather than the work being done. And then, as time goes on, they're going to understand the actual processes more. Because like I said, the roles are going to change from actually creating the data and syncing everything together to just interpreting, once that data is consistent, it's clean, it's trustworthy, how do we interpret it, what do we do with it from there? So I think it's really going to kind of jumpstart them into higher roles rather than having to kind of start from the ground up because they're just going to have that accelerator out of the gate.
Yeah, I struggle with this. I mean, I hope it jumpstarts them, but I do find that a good foundation is really it's really important, right, to launch your career. So my only thought is you have to be extremely mindful. There are things that they don't have to do that's not going to really support them. And if AI can take that on or automation can take that on, great. But you likely have to be more mindful to illustrate to them, like, here's a foundational piece. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to grow off of it. Yeah, I struggle with it because I think, like, the next generation, I don't want to do them wrong by not giving them the full picture, even though we know it's getting easier and easier to automate some of those tasks.
Yeah, great answers. Anybody else? Chet, who are you pointing at? I thought I saw you. Just putting somebody on the spot. Logan.
Hi everyone, Logan, Senior Rock Advisors. My question is, I have a friend, colleague who says, he's in marketing, and says, wow, the AI software coming out, you're not going to have a job in 18 months. And so you touched on it a little bit where it's not really that full replacement aspect of it, but I was wondering if you have a good response I can give.
I would think marketing would be one of the ones that would get replaced, to be honest.
Tell him he's lower on the pecking.
I know. I mean, we were just talking about this. ChatGPT did not pass the CPA exam, but it did pass the bar, so you can say that. But honestly, I think, like, the critical piece of finance is expertise, and there is a perfection element, right? Like, we do care about dollars and cents, and that can be challenging to automate. That can be challenging to not have a human touch, which is why there's a requirement to have someone there. So enhancement, absolutely, but replacement, difficult, because that's not where the expertise of this machine will go.
Yeah. Great response.
You might have.
Yeah, and I was going to say, to kind of piggyback off that, like, I think what would be mainly the critical thing about, like, kind of where AI is right now and how it's not going to be taking your jobs is the human element, like the ethical considerations that are being taken into account when you're actually making decisions with the data that you've been provided. Because, AI is incredibly intelligent, it can do all these amazing things, but, doesn't have feelings. It's just going to give you the most efficient, most logical answer, which at the end of the day isn't always correct. It might not be right, and there might be, some either ethical implications or just, it's just not taking something important into account where you're not getting like that full picture almost. So it's just kind of like giving you a more robust data set to guide better decisions off of. So like I said, at the end of the day, I don't ever really envision, at least in the next couple years, like a fully automated kind of stack top to bottom. You're always going to need, some kind of human element to make sure that, if there's any little bit of error somewhere, that it gets remediated out. If there's any kind of, glaring issue, like you can hit the stop button and, get involved and fix it before it becomes a true blue problem.
Great questions, great answers. Anybody else? All right, we're going to go on to our next topic, from manual to modern. First question, either one of you can answer. Question is, tell us about a process that you had historically done manually that you have now automated and the impact of doing so.
I can go first.
Yeah,
if you want.
go for it.
One that we have recently kind of started to use is with our expense reporting. So kind of very similarly to what we do, that invoicing example I'd mentioned earlier, where I can submit all of my receipts when I go on like a work trip, whether they be digital or physical. The AI tool can basically OCR that document. It'll understand all the key pieces of metadata that are needed to fill in, say, an expense report, and then it can automatically submit that expense report. Which, like I said, kind of feeding back into the approvals. If there's any issues, it's immediately flagged, kind of getting into that being proactive rather than reactive. So rather than having to, wait for it to go out, get rejected, wait for your notes, like we're going to totally shorten that feedback loop. Here's the problem out the gate. Just get it fixed. Once it's fixed, you send it out, and it's all approved, and you're all good to go. And we've been seeing, pretty good time savings with that, a lot more accuracy as well in terms of like, people billing to the proper code and people, sending their expenses to the right places, that sort of thing. So seeing a lot, like I said, shortened feedback loops, a lot less rejections, or a lot less, reviews that need to be done to get, certain problems fixed because they're already flagged and done before it even hits the approver.
I really like that one. I'm going to give you 3 points on that because there's going to be some expenses coming from this trip for the Blue Onion team, and I'm going to have to pick your brain on how to make that a closed circuit.
I was going to say allocations. Like if you have multiple products, if you have several departments, or I worked at a company that had like 95 stores. And so we had to allocate one specific expense across all of those stores, all of those departments. And there's so many tools out there. A lot of ERPs already have this where you can input percent allocations every month and press button and it'll do that for you. And so we used to put it in a spreadsheet and upload it into our AP system, and we don't have to do that anymore.
Outstanding. Not one I'm familiar with, but I'm going to give you 2 points because I like it a lot.
Great, I'll take it.
Okay, next question. What legacy finance process is still holding companies back? And I really like this one for both of you as you're working with a variety of clients. And you don't have to get into specifics and names. You can if you want. We don't mind airing out dirty laundry. But as you work with companies, what are you finding is kind of like a pattern or even just like a one-off where you're like, man, why are they letting this be a blocker?
I do think coding is a really big one that everyone has to do, and it's a huge blocker, and it's always because it's the beginning of the chain. This isn't discovered, the errors aren't discovered until the end, and so I have found that people are not that excited about implementing like a cool AP software, but in reality, that's going to save you so much time. So I've noticed that that's a huge blocker. And the other is just like manual reconciliations, whether it be cash or not. Like you should be connecting to your third-party systems. They are your subledgers. Save yourself the time, headache, and manual intervention, and just make it happen, even if it costs you an extra buck, because you will save so much time on that close.
5 points for that one. Like it a lot. Follow up.
What software are you using for automating reconciliations?
For reconciliations, I mean, there's a lot out there, right? I mean, there's the Blue Onion helps with some. There's Blackline. There's Flowcast. Those are like heavy hitters. In Blackline specifically, the implementation period can be quite long, but it can stick with you for a very long time through several ERPs. So once you do it once, hopefully you're good to go. And then Flowcast is like a little bit of a mid-tier one, and so worth looking into for sure, especially if you're trying to tick and tie cash and you've realized you haven't like reconciled AR in 3 months or something like that. Like this will ensure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think for me, off the top of my head, the first thing I can think of is an over-reliance on like multiple Excel spreadsheets, as well as in combination with different data silos and having your data kind of segmented. When your different systems like aren't really talking to each other and you have to translate data over manually, that is a huge area where manual errors occur, which then kind of compromises your data integrity, which then compromises the ROI that you're seeing using these AI tools. So I think that, in combination with, like I said, so many Excel sheets, if you have this kind of dislocated series of systems, you might have redundant documents that leads to not only incorrect data coming through, but there could be stale data. So you then not only have to manage one location, but you're managing, say, 3 locations, sometimes all the same document, 2 versions which are so old that they are no longer relevant. One is the single source of truth. And maybe not everyone knows where that is. So they're asking several different people how to get to the document that they're looking for. And it's just like, an elongated feedback loop for something that should be a one-stop shop, essentially.
I think it's such a great answer. How many people get pinged on a regular basis, almost daily, for, hey, do you know where this document is? Can you tell me where that Excel sheet is? Can you, is that a common pain? Yeah, I get that a lot. No offense to my team, I love you all, and I'm always there to help. But I think that's a really good one, Joe. I'm gonna give you 5 points on that one, Meg. 5 to Joe on that one. Last question for this topic, and then we're gonna open it up to the audience, which of course you all are welcome to interject and ask questions throughout. So I think this one is really really impactful and kind of influenced, touched on this a little bit in the first topic. But what's your advice? We're all sitting in this room, and we know that there's a lot of change happening currently, and there's a lot of change in our future. What is the advice you give to people, both in accounting and just across business, to stay ahead of the curve?
I mean, in some ways we talked about this, right? Going to events like this is a really good way to support that. But honestly, you should just do periodic workflow reviews because that will allow you to see your weakest points, and then you can stay ahead of the curve by already addressing them before they blow up in your face. So that whole not reconciling AR, forgetting that account exists, if you make it a habit to review your workflows, great role for an intern, then you can actually address something before it becomes a bigger deal.
And how do you review a workflow?
AI. You can. AI can probably help create the ideal workflow, but you should go through order to cash. From the point of purchase to the point of receiving cash, you should go to procure to pay. You should go to record to report. You should go through your controls. You should have controls. And you should, as a leader on a finance organization, be doing that probably quarterly.
Outstanding. I love that. Joe?
Yeah, I would say a really, really common misconception that I often see is that AI is magic or it's like a silver bullet that's going to solve all your problems. Not the case. I've seen people that have in Microsoft Stack they implement Copilot and they expect it to do all their work for them. No matter what they ask it to do, they expect it to whip up perfect answers every time. That's not the case. As I kind of alluded to earlier, these tools, while they do have a lot of similar functionalities, they do have specialties. So, when you're thinking of these use cases, you're thinking of how you're going to implement these AI tools at your firm or your organization or what have you, you really want to dive into and do your due diligence on what tools are really good at doing what. So for example, good examples for research would be say ChatGPT or Perplexity or a Copilot, but when it's coming to creating maybe model diagrams or mock-ups, something like Claude might be a better example. So, don't expect this kind of one-stop shop. And also, it's not easy to implement AI. You really have to make sure that your data estate is in good condition before you just throw an AI tool on there. It's not going to solve that problem for you. It's only going to kind of make it worse if you throw an AI tool on top of a dirty data set, quote unquote. It's going to give you very poor results, which is going to, make your team lose confidence in the tool and can ultimately kill an entire implementation project before it even begins.
They're both such great answers. One, just be aware of a process, audit it, improve it routinely, right? You're saying quarterly. I think that's fantastic. Are folks here doing that as often as quarterly reviewing workflows? But yeah, we got a couple. Awesome. Is it similar in that you're actually working to kind of.
Well, it's at a new company. I was doing that at our last company, and then I'm taking it in the new company right now. We're in the process of trying to. We're a big AI forward company.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's really cool, right? So one of it is know your process, document it, improve it, understand it, find the gaps, find the weaknesses, and expose it. Second one, Joe, I thought was such a good point. It's like there is not the one size fits all AI, and you need the right tool for the right project, right? There's a reason why a carpenter has a truck full of tools. Every tool has a specific use case, and the same is with AI, right? There are, ChatGPT, Claudes, that are going to be powering a lot of other products that we're going to consume, but those other products are really focusing in on individual use cases. So I think that's both really great points, is like know your workflow, audit it, improve it. 2, pick the right tool for the right task. Awesome. Point each, because if I'm doing my math right, I was at 13, that makes 15, boom, boom. Audience members, I want to see a hand from everybody this time, because a lot of you are too shy and didn't want to pick one or the other. Hands in the air for Joe. Oh, okay. I think that's 8. Hands in the air for Anushka. Oh, she's kicking your butt, Joe. 5 points. I think it's very
Try not
level.
to take it too personally.
It's
I
a
know,
level
it's hard
playing
to
field
watch.
here,
Kind of
folks.
hard.
I think they're railing behind the accountant.
Yeah,
Valid.
I'm speaking
It's-
their language.
They really like their peer. Awesome. To the audience, the category was from manual to modern. We asked questions about, well, what is something that you have automated, and what's the impact? We asked questions about how to stay ahead of the curve. Any questions, point of views? Evan, over here.
Thank you. Based on what you just spoke about, you can get so inundated with this product and that product and this AI and that AI. And I think, it's a lot easier to buy a pair of sneakers, right?
Yeah.
Than it is. And you may be going through multiple iterations of trying to figure out, well, someone told me I should use this bond, or someone told me I should use that. And the feedback I get from people is like they're just going down that course. And it's so difficult to decide, to tell, to identify, even in a subset of AI tools that may be tailored for your industry or for your process. It's still so overwhelming, and I think it's just going to continue to be so what advice would you give to people that are really trying to figure out and stay ahead of the curve, but are finding themselves very frustrated by identifying the right tools?
Yeah, it's exhausting because there's so many out there, and some address very specific things, but it's hard to know if they'll be, the silver bullet that will support you. I have found that a lot of people will go in and say that they have a problem and need to find a solution without doing anything in between. And so, highly recommend having a process prior to even having the conversation with the tools. So create a requirements matrix, generate your flow chart, identify the true points of weakness, and then say the must-haves. Must it be no manual intervention, or can I live with that? Must it be it syncs to my ERP because I don't want to touch it, or can I live without that? So that you go into the conversations with these tools knowing exactly what you need, because there's just so many. So without your own yellow brick road pointing the way, it would be really challenging and it would be confusing. So I know I made that mistake so many times, and then as a result, you get to the end of the implementation and you realize it doesn't have the one report you absolutely needed. So do that diligence first before even opening the door to the conversation.
That's a great answer. I think the best buyers on the planet, and I've worked with a lot of them, and we work with a lot of them, know exactly what they want, know exactly what they need. They have very specific criteria. And the best salespeople will also help you identify that. And that's one thing we really take a lot of pride on as a business. We don't want to waste anybody's time, right? So if you have specific criteria, we can identify very quickly whether or not we're a match. And for all of you in the room, the potentially buyers, that's the starting point. The research isn't necessarily, let's look at 100 tools. It's let's define very specifically what we're trying to accomplish, what's necessary, what's nice to have, and then be very specific with the folks and vendors you're looking at about that list.
Yeah, I think a huge value add that, let's say, from whoever's involved in your third party, your consultants, your advisory team, they've done a lot of this before you're ready. So people should piggyback on their expertise and research that they've done. And so you're not throwing to the horse. I think firms and companies are getting better and better at guiding their clients about what should to minimize the scope of what they have to test it out. And I think it's a big area of growth.
Yeah.
A lot of consultants also.
Is Charlie in the room? He's not. Charlie is one of our founders. He's probably, hopefully he's in a dark room coding away some awesome updates to our product. But he actually uses, this is an interesting one, he uses an AI that recommends AIs for specific tasks.
Yeah.
So I think one, have your criteria. Two, social proof it,
Mm-hmm. So which one do you use? Yeah, it's like a cycle here.
Yeah, it's criteria. Awesome question, great answers. Any other questions or point of views that anybody would be interested in sharing?
With the different ERPs that are out there and the different AI tools that are also out there, are you guys seeing or do you feel like the various ERPs are doing the work to like make the updates in their systems to bring in the AI itself, or are we gonna have to invest in an ERP but also take the time to keep adding on these tools?
Yeah, the way I envision that is a little bit of both. So, there are some platforms like I alluded to earlier, like the Microsoft stack, for example. Like if you're leveraging Dynamics, they are really focused on bringing in Copilot, deeply integrating it into the platform, as well as allowing you to connect to it from just, interacting with Copilot in the web. For some other platforms, it might be a little less so because they might not have their own, like Copilot, for example. So you might need to integrate a third-party software or something like that. So I think it's really important, also kind of building off of what you were asking earlier, like which tool is best for you, is to really kind of evaluate your entire stack, find that major issue that needs to be solved, and then once you've found the top 5 AIs that tackle this problem, what subsequent kind of benefits they have for being in this particular system. Do they have deep integration? Do they allow you to talk to other systems, or is it just something that's going to sit on top and allow you to answer questions, that sort of thing? Because they're all, like I said earlier, going to be different. So it's really just kind of taking your whole environment into account, seeing what your major pain points are, tackling them whenever you found, like I said, the top 3 answers. Then you kind of see which has the most benefits, as well as that scalability long term, because if that's every organization is looking to kind of expand. So you want an AI tool that'll grow along with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly know it's a requirement, right? Like they're going to be throwing the words around too. Like NetSuite, Suite World had the whole thing on it, right? But it's changing so fast for them also. So I have found that it's been hard to adopt and hard to release because they'll have a release ready to go and then things will change. So it's challenging for the ERPs as well. So there might be some advantage of disconnecting the two when you start really pulling it apart.
It's a really good question. I think one thing to be aware of is anytime there's an emerging technology and category, the biggest players are going to both try to build and buy. So because there's so many tools and so many competitors, you're going to see every ERP acquire businesses that are AI natives in the course of the next 3, 5, whatever years. But you're going to have to decide first what you need, get there probably before them oftentimes, and sometimes be lucky. They might acquire the thing that you're using. They might build something that has the same capabilities and you can sunset the one you initially started with. But I think ultimately the concept of knowing what you're trying to accomplish, having specific criteria is going to help you a lot, and then the world will consolidate on its own, kind of like outside of what we can actually impact. Great question.
I just want to carry this conversation back to your point earlier on ensure your team is ready to adopt, because the place I've been living, I'm sure many of you have, is that somebody upsold us all of the everything. We're paying for it. Nobody was going to use it, and now we're paying for bolt-ons, on the side. And then it's even messier. And then the messy bowl spaghetti got messier. So it's just, it's don't get upsold if nobody's ready to adopt it.
It's such a great point. I've been learning this about some of the ERPs as this is, I'm a year into my tenure in this category. But it's like, for me, I'm like, oh, it's like Salesforce. Every single person on the planet hates their Salesforce instance, and they buy a ridiculous amount of vendors to support it. And they always ask the same question: why isn't Salesforce doing this natively? But Salesforce does a lot. It's a big platform, and it has too much customizability, so it's hard for them to constantly do more and more and more. Hence why they built such a robust partner platform. And I think you see that with ERPs too. So it's a tough decision. Do you hope and bet that they can get there? Do you add something on and make that work in the short term? But ultimately, what you can turn into is a Frankenstein. right? Too many things trying to be compiled together with duct tape that ultimately just fails. And that's what you really want to try to avoid, I think, at all costs.
Yeah, and I think another point off that is, when you're implementing these AIs, like it's kind of a really bad idea to start with such a grandiose implementation off the bat. Like you really want to start as small as possible and then kind of plug in that next bolt. Like once you know that this process works, people know how to use it, people are using it, go up the next step. What's the next process we can implement? Because you don't want, because for that very reason, people will get overwhelmed. They'll be unfamiliar with all this technology that's new. They won't know how to properly use it, which, the data could be good, but if people don't know how to decipher that data, then, you can't really do much with it. So you don't want to instill fear in your team or give them this crazy new tool that, they're going to be a little bit scared of using, but you want to just kind of, breadcrumb, feed them, and work your way up the ladder pretty much.
An interesting example of this, we were talking about it this morning. How many folks use Slack within their companies? How many people have tried their AI native functionalities? Not so many. We piloted it as a company and very quickly found out that we had next to no use. And Lindsay was telling me, when she talked to the account manager, that they were like, oh, well, the accounts that are getting a ton of success are using Slack for all of their documentation. And her response was like, well, we don't. Why didn't you tell me that before we tried this? I had the business test this out and give it a shot, but you told me after the fact that we were bound to fail, right? And you're going to find that a lot. Like in large companies and large technologies, the means to get value out of their AI is actually only if you're using the breadth of what they offer. And if you don't, probably won't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're just giving me a time. I was like, did you question? All right, we have one more topic, and I'm just going to take a detour off of what the plan was. I'll ask one question, and then I brought this board in because I thought it's such a good one. I've told many of you, these are all the responses from the folks who RSVP'd with the challenges or things that they're interested in talking about. So I'm going to ask you both one question, and then after it, we're going to start pulling these little stickies off the board and see if any of the brave souls want to talk about maybe what the challenge or the ask or the question was, and just have a conversation with the panelists and you all. So the first question, or the last question that I'll ask is, this is one of my favorite ones. I like asking this on like every conversation, whether personally or professionally. If you had a magic wand, what would you change? Either within your role, your business, the category of accounting and finance, tomorrow. What would be that thing you'd wave that wand to change?
There's so many.
Let's go there.
I mean, there's so many when we talked about so many of like the menial sad tasks, but sometimes I feel like I don't want to explain GAAP. So cash to accrual, those kinds of things, I wish I could wave a wand and people just like understand what we do. But thankfully we have each other, so.
That is an amazing one. I wish you could have done that for me a year ago. Like wave a wand and just teach me all this stuff, because it's been quite the learning curve. I like that one a lot. Joe?
For me, it's data silos. They are killer. They are, especially when you're dealing with AI implementations, like in the past, when you're trying to consolidate all this data from 3 different places and you have 3 different definitions for one piece of data that is actually just the same piece of data. It's like maybe it's my employee ID in one environment, maybe it's my participant ID in another, maybe it's, but it's all the same number. So consolidating all that data takes a lot of time. And also, hooking up the AI implementation to all those if you so choose, or just finding reliable ways of feeding all of the information into one, can also be quite intensive when you're implementing AI. So I think, if I could wave my wand and just, I keep saying one-stop shop, but that would be amazing. So amazing.
I like that a lot. Great answers. Anybody in the room have a magic wand thing they would do? Teach me more accounting. I like that. 5 points to each. All right, so here's our board. These are things that you all added to your RSVPs. Anushka, I'm going to ask you to pick one and then just ask the audience. If you're here and this was your challenge or the thing you were interested in talking about, why? It's a lot.
Someone just wrote monthly close, or closing month end timely enough and accurately. Did someone have like a specific question related to that?
Closing? Ooh, ouch. Okay, watch yourself. We're going to take that one off. Closing month end timely enough and accurately. And this goes to what Brian was talking about. Sounds like the majority of us are not closing the month until the back end of the next month. Anybody in here have a specific challenge or pain with that they're trying to alleviate? And if not, we're just gonna.
I think that was mine, and I think we kind of covered it in Brian's. I raised my hand that we were like still closing. I just left my last company, full disclosure, so it's not like the solve, but I think the reality was the team had been upsold an ERP that they weren't using functionality. So before I got there, the teams migrated to an Excel consolidation file. And they spent half the month reconciling like the two pieces. So you were never getting, and then the lender covenants that are due on the 30th. So you were like closing out the 28, 29, mailing in your lender covenants with, cross fingers, and then starting again, because now you're at the beginning of your next month with no actionable insights in terms of running the business. So there was my pain for everybody who did that. So maybe I'm going to start a new company for anyone that looks me up on LinkedIn pretty soon.
You mentioned you haven't signed the NDA, so we'll find out. Everybody, check in soon. I'm excited to find out. I think it's good. I mean, how many folks have had that experience in this room? I think a lot. Awesome. Joe, how about you?
I think this one jumped out to me first and foremost. Real-time data.
Ooh.
It's a good one. I think this is going to be really interesting because real-time data is going to change, how roles are kind of done a little bit. We're going to transition from kind of monthly or weekly snapshots of financials to the date kind of accurate tellings, which is pretty cool. That being said, while it has a ton of benefits, being able to respond to trends more agilely, excuse me. And then there's also, an opposite side to that coin, where if you have bad data, you're getting that bad data in real time, which may freak you out. It might lead you to make some knee-jerk reactions, which are not good. So I think that while real-time data could be incredibly beneficial, if you have that solid data source coming in, your data is trustworthy, you're going to be able to jump on trends immediately. Going back to responding proactively rather than reactively, you're going to be able to not so much look at particular points in time, but you're going to see what's happening right now. How is this being affected? How is this affecting KPI A, B, and C? And then how do we kind of go from there? And then, like I said, if your data is bad, garbage in, garbage out. So your real-time data and your real-time decisions could have a serious negative impact. So watch out for that.
Yeah, it's a great point. I'm going to pick one because I'm actually shocked that we haven't talked about this yet today. I think things have settled out a little bit, but who has been struggling with this year? Tariffs. Nobody? None of you? Okay, I thought so. For the two of you, if either of you are wanting to, what is the recommendation and how have you been helping clients amidst the chaos and ambiguity of tariffs this year?
I mean, we have 3 different forecasts. Truly, if it's in the middle of the road, if what's going to happen, if it's really bad, what's going to happen. Truly, it's anyone's guess, unfortunately. And the levers we pull, automate your forecast as best you can because you might have to have many versions of it, especially if you're trying to forecast inventory purchases and how much should you hold versus it's so hard to give a solve for something like this.
Yeah, it's near impossible.
Yeah.
The multiple forecasting, I kind of giggle because I'm like, Lindsay, you sound familiar? I think that happens with or without tariffs and kind of almost regardless of businesses, but the impact of uncertainty on a forecast, my gosh, just a thing that we have been hearing a lot this year, the difficulty of it, having to reprioritize conversations with vendors and supply chain, and just how much of resources, bandwidth, attention, and energy has been focused on trying to get ahead of it when it's near impossible to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, on our team, we've been, working very closely with both the accounting side of, our internal firm as well as our clients as well to pick apart those pain points, what parts of those processes are really killing people, and then, we've been trying to build some custom solutions kind of around those needs, and then, as we kind of create these pain point specific tools, bring them together that, maybe eventually we'd have a more robust solution that can kind of soup to nuts deal with everything, whether that be forecasting, calculations, et cetera.
Sure.
Yeah.
So incremental buildings going on for sure, and just trying to keep up, keep our ears to the ground, see what our accounting friends are talking about, complaining about, pretty much.
Yep. aligned on all of that. I'm going to go ahead and do one more, I think, and then we can wrap this up unless anybody has anything else they're very curious to ask our panelists. Last one, we talked about it a little bit, but TikTok. It's similar to tariffs, right? It's being impacted by one individual pretty substantially this year. Are we all in on TikTok? Are we concerned about it? Because we get asked all the time. We're growing. We're seeing way more sales there. When are you guys going to get there? How do you guys feel about TikTok and the future of it for selling in the States?
I don't know, I'm a millennial, so we stopped at Instagram. But honestly,
Sure.
the reality is like, if it's another sales engine, you just have to find another way to reconcile it. So like from our point of view, right,
Yeah.
it's like accept it and find a way to address it.
Yeah.
Because you don't really have a say. And it sounds like it's a pretty powerful sales engine. So
For sure. Growing rapidly. It's something that we kind of unforeseen have seen an enormous spike in sales this year across clientele. So, Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, on my side of things, like, it's kind of like the next logical jump. Like, I'm very familiar with social media, and every social media platform has their own like market and stuff now. But when it comes to TikTok Shop in particular, what I've noticed is like just the constant advertisements that like aren't advertisements. It's sponsored posts. So like you could be watching a TikTok post and then at the end it's an ad and you had no idea it was even an ad until you got jumped by the TikTok Shop down here link at the bottom.
Yeah.
Which, and I think that I've been seeing a ton of people, like I haven't personally used it myself, but I've talked to a bunch of my friends that are like, yeah, I order stuff off TikTok Shop all the time. They just get me. I see a video. I'm like, that's cool. Buy. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would have never considered that like in the past, especially because like, on Instagram, for example, you can tell very clearly what's an advertisement. It's got like different colors and it's got, like the special sponsored kind of stuff around it. But when it comes to TikTok, it's a lot more sneaky kind of like when it comes to like the way they market it. So I think, when you have an influx of people that are more like, oh, this, looks like a cool product. Let me just pick it up.
Yeah.
You're going to see an influx of purchases and like kind of what you said, just got to do the reconciliations. It's going to be there. People are going to be using it. So I think it's adapt.
I love it. Outstanding answers. Folks, we have any questions or anything else we want to talk about with our outstanding panelists before we wrap this up? No? Meg, how are we doing on the counter? Oh, sorry, did we have one?
Yeah, this is a little bit disruptive, but
Our favorite kind
so
of
the
question.
conversation with accounting and AI focus on automation and efficiency. And I'm just curious, like, could AI help change what we track in the first place? Like, I guess does it have the potential to help us look at non-financial metrics, like social good, environmental impact, like things like that? Because there's so many companies that are like more purpose driven, that are kind of post-capitalistic, they care about other metrics. There's so many other metrics than financial metrics. And I just wonder if like we'll have space to like track those.
Definitely. I'm even seeing it a little bit now with some of the clients that I've been working with. So outside of the finance space, a lot of people have been using it for like employee onboarding type of stuff. So like they can kind of go to their dashboard and see like, how all the new onboarding people have been doing for this current month. They're seeing, the rates of meetings and stuff like that. They're seeing, and then not only metrics on like the actual workforce coming in and like what they're doing, but also how they're utilizing the tool. So on the flip side of things, you're also going to have the analytics into how these new people are using the tool. Other than just like the tooling and other stuff like that, like if you have metrics really on anything, you'll be able to work in an AI implementation. You'll be able to whip up like a cool Power BI dashboard, it asks questions. So I've been seeing it not just in the finance space, I've been seeing it a lot with HR, which has been really, really interesting and really, really cool. But yeah, no, I think that really if there's any kind of quantifiable metric, you will pretty much be able to, do something with AI with it and have it track.
And accountants can now more than they previously.
So like you could, if you have a particular, client, for example, that, maybe you need to track something other than their financials, like you were insinuating, you can wrap that into, another dashboard, whether that be the same one in a different little widget, or if you have an entire dashboard separate. If that data is stored somewhere that has, an API that you can tap into programmatically, you'll be able to access that data, hook it up to some kind of, AI platform. Obviously, there's going to be some implementation work in there depending on your platform, but yeah, you'll be able to do some cool stuff with it.
yeah.
Really cool question.
I mean, it's just about the data, right? So if it's available, then you can report on it.
Just wondering if that's going to be like a growing area.
I'd venture to guess you can find vendors supporting certain use cases like that already. But I think it's really cool that you're interested in doing that and wanting to explore it. All right, Meg, how are we doing on the numbers?
I think both teams have fun.
Ah, true, very true.
You
Oh.
One. Final curveball of the day. We were never going to have one winner because you are both amazing and so gracious for donating your time, your knowledge, your experience, and your expertise. So we have 2 winners. To both of them, we're going to get you a nice fine dining gift card to a restaurant of your choosing. Circle back to me afterwards, and we'll get that suited and sorted. How about one last final applause for John and Anushka on this? How about another round of applause to all of you for coming, hanging out, having fun. One last final applause because it's happy hour. Let's go. Seriously, thank you all so much for coming. Such a lot of fun. I hope everyone sticks around and enjoys a couple drinks with us.